Out of the Enlightenment, central ideas of classical liberalism, liberty, and equality developed.
Call for liberty caused people to demand freedom to worship, an end to censorship, and freedom from arbitrary laws. People also believed in sovereignty, where people alone could make laws that limited individual freedoms. Equality meant that every man should have equal opportunity, whereas it did not mean equality between men and women nor economic equality between different classes. Two key people were important in the development of these ideas: John Locke and Baron de Montesquieu. Locke believed that government should not overstep the function of protecting the natural rights of the people. Montesquieu believed in the separation of power and government. In the beginning, not a lot of people supported these ideas except for the bourgeoisie. These ideas were first expressed in the New World, where the revolutionaries demanded traditional liberal rights. After the British fought in the 7 Years' War, they were in huge debt. They therefore levied the Stamp Act, where colonists had to pay taxes on paper-related products. The Parliament repealed the act when the colonists revolted, and later, East India Company shipped tea directly from China to the colonies and gave the company a monopoly on the tea trade. The colonists were angry and revolted during the Boston Tea Party. Fighting began in 1775, and the book Common Sense by Thomas Paine inspired people's favor in independence. The French supported the revolutionaries, and many of the French army men were deeply influenced by the revolution. After the war, the Americans deserted the French and signed a more favorable treaty with Britain. Therefore, the Treaty of Paris was signed and gave the 13 colonies independence. The liberal program adopted included the Constitution and Bill of Rights. The government operated under the checks and balances system from Montesquieu, where no branch was ever too powerful. This revolution gave greater reality to the idea of a government built on liberal ideas. This leads us to the French Revolution.
One of the reasons the French Revolution occurred was because of the financial difficulties of the government. After helping the American Revolution, the government was in huge debt. France did not have a central bank, a paper currency, or credit. The only way was to increase the taxes on the people. The French people were divided into 3 estates: the clergy, the first estate, the nobility, the second estate, and everyone else, the third estate. The first estate never really needed to pay taxes, and the second estate had manorial rights that allowed them to tax the peasants for themselves. The third estate, led by the bourgeoisie, had to pay most of the taxes. In 1787, Louis XVI called an assembly of notables to gain support for the idea of taxing land property. In return for their support, the notables demanded more control in the government, but Louis refused and established the taxes by decree. The Parliament then declared that as null and void. Finally, in 1788, Louis decided to call estates general, the representatives of the 3 estates. The third estate wanted a single assembly dominated by the third estate to give reforms. In Joseph Saez's book, What is the Third Estate?, said the nobles were only a minority and only the third estate was the true strength of the nation. In May 1789, the 3 estates met, but the third estate wasn't allowed to sit with the first and second estate. The third estate, now known as the National Assembly, was excluded from the hall and moved to an indoor tennis court. There they pledged the oath of the tennis court, where they would not disband until a new constitution. At first, Louis wanted the 3 estates to meet together and wanted to disband them by force. He then resigned himself to bankruptcy. While this was happening, the peasants were suffering from bad harvest and starvation. The prices of bread skyrocketed and people were out of jobs. This led to depression and uncertainty, and people thus believed in the rumor that the king's troops would sack the city. As a result, many people marched to the Bastille to search for weapons and gunpowder and kill the governor of the Bastille. Meanwhile, in the countryside, peasants began to rise against their lords and did the closures of some land. The peasant strikes and revolts were called the Great Fear. The nobles gave in, and the peasants never had to pay feudal dues again. After the peasants got what they wanted, they became a force for peace and stability. In 1789, the National Assembly issued the Declaration of the Rights of Man, which guaranteed equality before the law, representative government, and individual freedom. While the National Assembly was drafting a constitution, the women of Paris revolted due to unemployment and hunger, which caused the royal family to move to Paris. In 1791, a constitutional monarchy was accepted, and Louis remained the head of the state. However, the National Assembly had the lawmaking power. The National Assembly created the metric system, granted religious freedom to some people, nationalized the church and abolished monasteries, and created the new paper currency, the assignat. Conflict with the Catholic Church rose, and the National Assembly required the clergy members to take a loyalty oath to the government. Only the half of the priests took the oath of allegiance, and this led to confusion and division. This division also sharpened conflict between the educated and common people and led to the government's first important failure.